Hello. So I recently DM'd some authors on Instagram and asked them what their favourite book of all time was. I Instagrammed quite a few different authors, but the two that managed to respond were Lisa Jewell and Claire Douglas. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be picking up even their favourite books over the next few weeks, reading them and then letting you know my thoughts on whether I think they're any good or not. Now, a couple of hints. So Claire Douglas's choice of book is actually one of Lisa Jewell's books, which is quite funny. They didn't know that either of them were doing this. And then Lisa Jewell's book is a book by Sabine Durrant called Lie With Me, which I have never heard before. So they are these two books. And these are the two books, as I said just now, that I'm going to be reading over the next couple of months or weeks or however long it takes me. And then I'm going to give you my kind of review at the end. How many videos I'm going to do for each, I don't know. This is the first time I've done a video where I've not just sat down and recorded the whole thing in one go. So there may be an incident where I talk about this one way more than I talk about that one. But in either case, I will end up talking about both of them at the end and giving my thoughts. Really excited to read both, really excited to kind of see why both of them think they're their best book that they've ever read. So we'll see. These are Claire Douglas's and Lisa Jewell's favourite books of all time. Hi everyone, this is Luke, post-edit. I've just slipped this in just as a little kind of plug. A couple of weeks ago, some people mentioned that it might be a good idea for me to set up a Patreon. My blog costs money to kind of set up. This kind of takes time out of my day, that sort of thing. So I said, okay, I'll set up a really cheap one, see what happens. If you have any interest in joining my Patreon at all, there are essentially two tiers. There's ones that's $3, where essentially you're just showing your support. They're monthly. That's all it is. You don't get any kind of benefits. That's just you saying thank you or well done or anything like that because you've ever appreciated anything I've written or done a video on or anything. There's then a second tier, which is $7, so a little bit more. That's monthly, and again, what you essentially get there is you get early access to all of my videos, you get exclusive access to polls or any kind of creatives that I want to ask any questions on, those sort of things. They're all down to you, and you can essentially subscribe to either of those tiers now. So I'll put a link in my bio, so if you're interested in supporting me in any way at all, I'd really, really appreciate it. If not, don't feel compelled to. I'm not going to be pushing anybody to do it. If you do subscribe to the $7 tier one, your name will go up on every single video as well. So another little bonus. But yeah, back to the video. So I just got home and I have Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant has arrived at home for me. This, as we know, was Lisa Jewell's favourite book, apparently, that she's ever read. So over the next couple of weeks, I'll be reading this and giving my opinion on whether I think Lisa Jewell knows what she's talking about when it comes to books. Obviously she does, but I can still be opinionated because at the end of the day, that's the point in this YouTube channel. So yeah, that's Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant. We'll see if this is as good as Lisa Jewell says it is. So I thought I'd give you another update on my opinions on Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant, which is Lisa Jewell's recommendation for me to read. At the moment, I'm about 8 or 9 chapters in and nothing's happened. It's very, very slow. Nothing's literally happened. There's a main guy who's a bit of a dick. He's gone on holiday with some friends and that's it. He seems to have some very obnoxious and arrogant tendencies. He doesn't seem particularly likable. He's got a weird interest in one of the women that's involved on this trip. He is seeing her. It's not just particularly this woman. But the whole idea of it seems a little bit odd to me. I don't know how much I'm liking it. I assume at some point it picks up or some big twist happens that make you really interested in it. But yeah, I'm about 9 pages in now, which is nearly 100 pages. 9 chapters in, sorry, which is nearly 100 pages. I'm just not that interested, unfortunately. We'll see if it gets better, though. I imagine it must get better because currently nothing's happening. Okay, so I'm just about to finish Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant. I've just been at the gym listening to the audiobook for most of the gym session, the whole gym session. But and I'm nearly finishing it. Now, I think my thoughts so far are literally, that was how many pages I have left. My thoughts so far are that it was incredibly underwhelming. However, I feel like things are picking up. Ignore all of this mess on my face. I'm not sure what's going on. But things are picking up with Lie With Me. Now, it should do at the end here. Now, Lisa Jewell responded to one of my tweets where somebody said, I've been reading it, I've put it down, it's not that great. And I said, yeah, I can kind of see why. The main character is actively dislikable. I think he's been written like that on purpose. But also, I think there's an element of the writing's really interesting. The writing's really good. She's written a character who's actively dislikable, but therefore a good character. It's not a case of she's written poorly. Do you know what I mean? And I quite enjoyed that. I have really struggled to get into any of the plot. by get into. I've been following it. I'm quite intrigued, but I'm just kind of waiting for that big thing to happen. Now I think the big thing's happening. So I think that's where we're at with Lie With Me. Is it going to be the best thriller I've ever read? I don't think so. This ending's really interesting, and that's a fantastic twist for me. And I'm really looking forward to see what these final kind of pages do, how they kind of get there. I don't want to spoil it by saying too much, but there's essentially a twist, but we're about to find out whether the twist is true or not, or it's not true. Yeah, I'll try not to spoil it. So I DM'd other authors as well, and one of those was Claire Douglas. She recommended me None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Now, this focuses on the story of a woman who's had a very difficult past and decides that she wants to go on a popular podcast and essentially talk about her difficult past. However, the podcast host finds that this woman's starting to get a little bit too involved in her life, and things start to get a little bit creepy, a little bit uncomfortable. So far, I'm half of the way through. I'm sorry I didn't start a whole, I've picked it up, here we are, blah, blah, blah. I'm half of the way through already. It is very, very good. It's very, very Lisa Jewell's so far. You know, you've got your awkward characters, You've got your tense moments. You've got your interesting kind of plot where you think, is something more going to keep happening? You've got your twists where something gets unveiled, like, this guy did this. And you're like, oh my God. Amazing. Yeah, very Lisa Jewell. Very, very tense. Really, really interested by it. I've read a couple of other Lisa Jewells before. The Family Upstairs. I think I read one about a girl that goes missing, something like this. But in general, very, very interesting. Love Lisa Jewell as an author. As I said, halfway through now. So I'll let you know my thoughts in, I don't know, a couple of days when I likely finish this. But until then, keep tuned. Make sure you're watching. I will be keeping updated with what's going on. And then I'm going to do a summary video at the end of this, or kind of a summary section at the end of this, about my reviews of Lie With Me and None of This Is True by Sabine Durrant. So, I've read both books now. I have finished Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant and Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True. Now, Lisa Jewell, obviously recommended by Claire Douglas, and Lie With Me was recommended by Lisa Jewell. So we've got some nice interconnecting play here. Right, I'm going to start with Lie With Me. So Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant is a book where, honestly, for the first 100 pages or so, I was not interested in it whatsoever. The first 200 pages, I started to think, okay, something might be going on here. There might be a bit more to this than I thought, but in general, I still wasn't that impressed. I felt like the main character was actively dislikable. I felt like the story wasn't really going anywhere. And in general, I just thought, no, this isn't my cup of tea. However, when it hit the kind of finale, when it hit the final third, the final act, as it were, there are a lot of kind of loose ends that are kind of wrapped up. A lot of things that you think throughout the book, why is that being done? What's that? That's weird. Why has that happened? That you think, oh, okay, that all makes sense now. To a point where I think this is actually a really good thriller. I literally went from putting out, as you'll have seen, some updates saying, I just don't know why this, like, Lisa Jewell likes this, to the point where I finished it and I thought, no, actually, this is banging. This is actually fantastic. So Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant is actually a really clever thriller. And one that I think if you want to read, maybe as a result of this video, or because you're a big fan of Lisa Jewell and want to know what she reads, I would recommend giving it time. Don't kind of get, I don't know, to chapter 60 and think, okay, nothing's happening. I'm not doing anything. I've just picked a random chapter there, first one I saw. Just keep giving it a go. Keep reading it. Keep getting to a point where you think, okay, now it's starting to kick off. And if you finish it and still don't like it, then fair enough, that's absolutely fine. But I know a lot of people who've done what I did. They were kind of trying to read it with me as well, because they saw my video that Lisa Jewell liked it. And a lot of them kind of, I was messaging them saying, yeah, they're like, this isn't good. I'm like, yeah, I know what you mean. And then we all kind of got to the end and we're like, okay, no, that was good. And so that's what Lie With Me by Sabine Durrant is like. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell is possibly the best thriller I've ever read. I've done some videos over on my TikTok and Instagram, and I've even put one up out here on YouTube of my April roundup, where I said Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True is the best thriller I've maybe ever read. And I know I've said that twice now, but really, really fantastic. The storyline was fast-paced. It feels like one of those Netflix documentaries that's set in some hillbilly town in America where something really dark happens. You're like, how did this actually happen? And what's really interesting about it is, ironically, I say Netflix documentary, there is actually a Netflix documentary weaved into the book about the events that are happening. So it's kind of the events are happening whilst the podcast is being recorded, so then you hear the elements of the podcast, and then there's also kind of dips into a Netflix documentary that was clearly made after the podcast was made and after the crimes were committed. And then they kind of highlight points to that as well. So really, really interesting. And the pace of it was fantastic. I listened to a lot of it on audiobook, and usually with thrillers and audiobooks, I get to the end, I'm like, yeah, that was fun. But this one, I was literally like, that is just everything amazing. Now, the title kind of gives it away, which is really tricky to say because that might have just ruined it for you. But a few people did say to me, well, the title gave it away. But I didn't really think of the title. I'm just saying the words, none of this is true, for the sake of saying them. I'm not really thinking, okay, what could that actually mean? Because I never think any title actually means anything. Like, I have no idea what the hell Lie With Me has to do with what this book's about. I have no idea. Actually, no, I've just worked it out. No, yeah, I've just worked it out. Okay. Brilliant. Anyway, none of this is true. Utterly, utterly fantastic. So you've got Lie With Me and you've got None of This is True. Two thrillers, one recommended by Claire Douglas, one recommended by Lisa Jewell. Both I would recommend. I have gone into a thriller kick recently, as you'll have seen in my recent YouTube video, where I highlight kind of some of the big thrillers that I think are genuinely worth people's time. And these two, for me, were two of the best that I have read for a very, very long time. This one is such a slow burner, but you've really got to stick it out because then the twists and the kind of the wrapping up at the end make up for it. It feels like Sabine Durrant doesn't know what she's doing for like 200 pages, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, she very much does. And then None of This is True, just from the outset. Again, a bit slower, but all thrillers are. All of Lisa Jewell's start a bit slow, and then they really start ramping it up. You've got to build a bit of a world and a bit of a character and a bit of kind of normality, and then throw in the weird, and that's what Lisa Jewell kind of does. So both fantastic books. I'm glad I picked them up. I will definitely be recommending these to people, and I'll definitely be DMing other authors, being like, well, that was your favourite book of all time. Because if you think, well, if authors can write something well, they must have got inspiration from another book that they really enjoyed, and that book's probably quite good. Hence, these two. That's that. I hope you enjoyed this sort of video, slightly different. As you'll have seen, there's bits of me kind of around my house here in this video, as opposed to just sat in front of, or stood in front of my fancy ass sign. So I hope that sort of thing was different. I would like to do more vloggy type videos, but the issue is, here I can sit down for 10 minutes and I can just talk about something, and then I can kind of cut that together at the end. Whereas if I film something kind of in different parts or elsewhere or anything like that, I've got to really think about how to kind of store those videos so I can then use them in one video later. But something that I'm willing to do if you all enjoy this. So, two great thrillers. I definitely recommend them. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit subscribe. If you haven't liked the video yet, like it. And also comment. I know a lot of people thought this was brilliant, and I know there's very 50-50 thoughts on this one. So, yeah, let me know below.